Sometimes you're watching a kid's film and think, there's no way this is rated G, only to find out there's an even worse version that's rated R that hasn't seen the light of day. This is why today we're diving into 7 lost, darker versions of kids' movies that we'll never see. Scooby Doo. The live-action version of Scooby Doo received awards such as Favorite Fart in a Movie at the Kids' Choice Awards, and with accolades like that, it's hard to imagine it as anything but a family-friendly flick. However, the film's screenwriter James Gunn revealed in 2017 that the first cut of the movie was originally rated R. It was rumored for years that the original cut of Scooby Doo was way more adult than the PG version that was released, as it was planned to be more like other TV show adaptations like the Brady Bunch movie that made fun of the shows, and Mike Myers was originally signed on to write the script and play Shaggy. And the studio still intended Scooby-Doo to be PG-13 when the job went to James Gunn, with more adult humor such as Shaggy and Scooby being huge stoners. Not that that isn't obvious from the PG version. However, according to Gunn, the thing that sent the MPAA over the edge and upped Scooby-Doo's rating to an R was a joke that referenced oral, which was later cut to make it PG-13. I'm not going to ask what the joke was or who said it, just in case it was Scooby-Doo. However, after showing the PG-13 cut at test screenings, some parents were outraged, and the movie got cut again to make it PG. Some of the changes the studio made, including removing the female character's cleavage with CGI, and making the monsters less scary, as they were originally soul-eating demons who broke into the Pentagon to take over the world in a cut ending. And there was also a cut romance between Velma and Daphne, which included them kissing on screen, and a cut scene where Velma danced topless in the bar. Jinkies. In addition to Velma, Daphne was also getting it on with Fred, according to some other cut scenes, as well as a cut line of Fred saying he wanted to do it while their bodies were swapped. And after this line, where Fred talks to Scooby about cleaning his beans at a Christmas party, Fred had a cut line implying he was jealous of Scooby's talents, as he'd like to be able to clean his own beans as well. Is that the oral joke James Gunn was talking about? Well, considering some of the adult jokes that did make it into Scooby-Doo,
I can look at myself naked.
There's likely even more than we can imagine in the R-rated version, which unfortunately no longer exists, according to Gunn, as apparently they edited over the original copies. Well, hopefully the R-rated version isn't lost forever, considering I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing that Velma and Daphne subplot. Kangaroo Jack. Kangaroo Jack, released in 2003, infamously known by 2000s kids for the funny talking kangaroo featured prominently in the movie's marketing.
The kangaroo got the money, and now they hop it away.
Only to find out he barely talks in the movie and he's only in a few scenes. And like Scooby-Doo, it won Favorite Fart in a Movie at the Kids' Choice Awards. How is it I picked the only 2 movies in existence that have ever won this honor? Despite seemingly being a movie only 8-year-olds could enjoy, Kangaroo Jack was originally written and filmed as an R-rated raunchy mob comedy. The original film was called Down and Under, based on an urban legend about tourists in Australia putting their jacket on what they thought was a dead kangaroo, only to watch it hop away with all their money and valuables in the pockets, which doesn't seem like a terrible premise for a movie. This version contained much more profanity and violence, and lead actor Jerry O'Connell even confirmed he filmed a nude scene for the movie, which as you can guess didn't make it into the PG cut. However, after some test screenings of the R-rated cut, Warner Brothers could see no one in the audience liked the movie, though the one thing they liked was the funny animatronic kangaroo. This showed the studio who the real star of the movie was, so they reshot some scenes with a CGI animated kangaroo instead, adding the infamous scene of the kangaroo rapping that lives rent-free in the head of every kid alive in 2003, as well as a credit scene where the kangaroo calls out how stupid it is that the movie is called Kangaroo Jack despite the fact that he's barely in it.
The movie's called Kangaroo Jack. It should end with me!
And looking at the original script, it's definitely different than the final version of the movie, most notably missing the gross-out humor. Unfortunately, not even a hip-hop kangaroo could save this movie, as critics hated it and parents were left wondering how the hell it got a PG rating, as some crude language and sexual innuendo still made it into the final cut, including a scene where a female character is groped. Other R-rated remnants include dialogue where the mobsters insult the main characters and call them chicken shit, which were redubbed to say chicken blood.
Chicken blood. Chicken blood.
Chicken blood. Chicken blood. Chicken blood. Chicken blood.
Which makes no sense given the missing context, like many other things in this movie. Rewatching it as an adult, I can confirm the only enjoyable parts of the movie are the 8 minutes the kangaroo shows up in. And considering he gets even less screen time in the R-rated version, I doubt that cut is any better. Surprisingly, Kangaroo Jack somehow did well enough to get a direct-to-video animated sequel. Though as dumb as the sequel was, I enjoyed it more than the original. Maybe only because it contained one of my favorite hip-hop tracks.
I'm gonna knock you out. Hoorah! Mama said knock you out. Hoorah!
Maybe one day the R-rated version will come to light, but considering that version features less Kangaroo Jack and more of Jerry O'Connell's dong, I think we ended up with the better version. The Black Cauldron. The Black Cauldron is known by many Disney fans as the movie that nearly killed the animation studio, which bombed at the box office and lost them more than $20 million, as it finally released in 1985 after years of development hell. In the story, based on the Chronicles of Prydain book series, a young pig herder, his magic pig, the Princess Elonwy, the bard Fluter Flam, and whatever this creature is have to stop the evil Horn King from getting a cauldron that will grant him unlimited power. While Disney wanted to make a PG-rated animated movie to attract more teenagers rather than just young children, they apparently went way too far trying to make the Black Cauldron appeal to older kids. As during a test screening of the original cut of the film, some scary scenes horrified kids so much they ran out of the theater crying. The offending parts included a shockingly darker version of the scene where the Horned King raises an undead army from the cauldron, where the undead were originally more graphic, such as a character's skin melting off until they become a skeleton, and a guard whose skin boils off after being attacked by the undead army, then rises again to become part of the army himself, which some of the animated cells were recovered from in an auction. There are also reports of a character being decapitated, as well as another character who apparently got cut in half. No wonder those kids were running out of the theater. Disney's chair at the time, Jeffrey Katzenberg, was in the audience and witnessed this. He then ran to the studio and ordered the animators to cut the offending scenes immediately, and started cutting them himself when the animators didn't do it right away. In the middle of all this, the Disney CEO stepped in to stop Katzenberg from cutting the film further so the animators could edit it the proper way. As a result, there's 12 minutes of footage missing from the Black Cauldron's original cut that test audiences saw, which still hasn't been seen to this day, 41 years after the disastrous test screening. In addition to the super graphic parts of the undead army scene, there's also a deleted scene where the Horned King burned down an entire village, as well as a cut action scene where Taran fought the king instead of him falling into the cauldron. After the box office failure, Disney tried to bury the Black Cauldron until they released it on home video in 1998, again without the sequences that had kids crying. And considering that footage may have scarred some kids for life, I imagine that cut is going to remain locked in a vault at the House of Mouse. But Katzenberg's furious attempt to cut the film may have completely destroyed the footage. This day, some Disney fans are upset the footage was never released, as if they want to be paying for therapy for seeing this as a child. All Dogs Go to Heaven. All Dogs Go to Heaven is a film from Don Bluth released in 1989. While it's rated G, it's essentially a mafia crime flick with talking dogs, beginning with the mob boss Carface killing his partner in crime Charlie by running him over with a car. Fortunately for Charlie, he goes to heaven, where an angel dog tells him all dogs go to heaven because they're all inherently good and loyal. Wouldn't that mean Carface is going to heaven too? He literally just murdered Charlie. Charlie then secretly rewinds a pocket watch he finds that represents his life, which sends him back to Earth so he can get revenge on Carface. Logic's kinda out the window in this movie. The angel tells Charlie he can never come back to heaven because of this, but he doesn't seem to be bothered, as he finds Carface holding a little orphan girl prisoner because she can inexplicably talk to animals, and Charlie steals her from Carface to use her ability to try to fix bets on races. If we set the child endangerment aside, the darkest part of the film occurs when Charlie has a nightmare about going to hell, as he knows he can no longer go to heaven when he dies. In this scene, Charlie gets sucked up into a tornado to come face to face with this demon in a river of lava. After being terrorized by his minions on a boat, he sinks into the lava. While this scene is already pretty creepy, it was actually longer and more frightening in an earlier cut of the film the studio showed test audiences. We can see some parts of this cut in a screening one of the film's animators showed to a class in 2016, where there are more close-up shots of the demon as he gets all up in Charlie's face to tell him something. While the audio is unclear, the demon appears to be telling Charlie, "You are mine." The 80s were a different time, and this wasn't the only thing taken out of the movie's original cut, as the ray gun the Mafia chases Charlie with was originally a much more realistic gun. Also, the scene where Charlie gets hit at the beginning of the movie definitely looks cut down. There are reports Don Bluth wanted to release a director's cut of the movie with all the deleted scenes a few years after the film came out, but someone allegedly stole the footage from the storage room it was in to prevent this from happening. Yo, whoever's holding on to that stolen print, hand that shit over quick, cause Don Bluth's 87 still hasn't retired and I want to see that director's cut. Then again, maybe you can hold on to it for now. Babe, Pig in the City. Babe, Pig in the City released in 1998, a sequel to Babe from 3 years earlier, about a cute little piglet who learns to herd sheep in order to avoid being killed for pork. Babe was a huge hit and also got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. The same can't be said for Pig in the City, which flopped in theaters, losing the studio at least $20 million. While the first Babe was a wholesome story about talking farm animals, the sequel is more like a dark fever dream full of creepy animals, which takes place in a strange fantasy city that weirdly looks like the set of Make-A Right at the beginning of the movie, Babe accidentally causes a horrific accident where the farmer gets injured falling down a well. With the farmer unable to work, the farm goes bankrupt. Thankfully, Babe is famous from the events of the last movie, so the farmer's wife Esme plans to take Babe to a state fair, which will pay the big bucks for the famous pig to appear. Unfortunately, Babe that up too, as on the way to the fair, Babe makes friends with a drug-sniffing airport dog during a layover, who decides to show off what happens when he detects drugs by barking on top of Babe's cage. This causes the TSA agents to question Esme, making her miss her connecting flight to the state fair, and now she must stay in a hotel while she waits for the return flight home. The only hotel in the city that allows animals is the sketchy one run by Miss Flume, which is full of stray cats and dogs, thieving monkeys, and her creepy Uncle Fugly. That seems like an appropriate name. Uncle Fugly is played by Mickey Rooney, who was supposed to have more screen time, but his role was cut down, as children who saw a test screening of the movie reportedly found him too disturbing. Honestly, they didn't cut him enough, as watching the few scenes of his that made it into the movie also had me creeped out. Uncle Fugly's scenes were just one of many things cut from the original version of the movie that test audiences saw, which had a PG rating before it was cut down to appeal to more families. In this original cut, the farmer falling down the well was more intense, including his blood-curdling screams, with him even dying in earlier versions of the script. Esme wasn't spared from misery either, as she was originally shown being fully strip-searched in the airport scene. There was also a deleted scene of Esme in jail, which showed her cellmate putting a hand over her mouth, implying that they attacked her off camera. Cause that's funny for a kid's movie. Of course, the pig got it too, with a deleted scene of Babe falling into a canal and nearly drowning, which apparently was a different scene than the one in the final film that also shows Babe nearly drowning in the canal, before Babe saves the dog who is chasing him from drowning. This scene as well was supposed to be longer and more intense than it already is, with the other animals saying the dog deserved to die. The helpless animals in danger didn't stop there, as their fate after the neighbor called animal control in the hotel was originally more gruesome, with officers attacking the animals before putting them in cages, which still remains an intense scene in the final film. In the final movie, Babe rescues his friends from animal control. However, this originally wasn't a normal animal control facility, as it was shown to be an animal testing facility, where critters were being tortured by the products tested on them, such as cats smoking cigarettes. And if that wasn't enough, there was also a deleted scene of Babe's duck friend Ferdinand being chased around by a hungry chef ready to kill him. And it was implied Esme and Flume randomly killed an innocent dude for calling animal control on them, because I guess they thought that was an appropriate punchline for a kids movie. Sounds more like an R-rated suspense film, which could have been what director and writer George Miller actually wanted to make, as he is more well known for making the Mad Max movies. Those of you who want to see the darker version of Pig in the City are as out of luck as the animals in this film, as that version hasn't been released since the first test screening, though considering that version includes more of Uncle Fugly, I think I'm going to sit this search out. Rover Dangerfield. Rover Dangerfield released in 1991, starring the comedian who got no respect, Rodney Dangerfield, as a necktie-wearing talking dog who got no respect. The movie followed Rover, the pet of a Las Vegas showgirl, gambling and dancing with other dogs in Las Vegas. That is, until the showgirl's gangster boyfriend tries to drown him in the Hoover Dam. Well, already off to a great start for a G-rated movie. Luckily, some fishermen save Rover from drowning before he runs off and finds a home on a farm. Over time, Rover makes friends with the other animals, and eventually he sings a song about not pissing on Christmas trees.
I'll never do it on a Christmas tree, oh what would Santa think of me?
Rover's fate eventually takes a turn for the worst when the farmer believes Rover killed a turkey and takes Rover to the woods to shoot his ass. This guy can't ever catch a break. Fortunately, a pack of wolves attacks the farmer right before he's about to shoot, and Rover chases them away to save the day. Rover is then seen as a hero and lives the rest of his days on the farm getting it on with a lady dog and teaching their puppies how to gamble. What an upstanding father. If all of this sounds strangely inappropriate for a kid's film to you, it's because Rodney Dangerfield originally intended it to be an R-rated movie, but Warner Brothers changed its mind during production and decided to tone it down and make it a kids movie instead. However, much of the adult-oriented humor still remains, such as when we see Rover trying to reanimate the turkey corpse and make it talk. According to Dangerfield, he put his own money into production and wrote some of the songs, which are by far the worst part of the movie.
Never do it on a Christmas tree is safe from me.
However, after disagreements with Warner Brothers about the film, they tried to quietly release it, only sending it to theaters in a few cities before going to home video. While the details of his arguments with Warner Brothers are unclear, there are reports Dangerfield had disagreements with other collaborators on the project, including not wanting to make any changes to the script. The screenwriter and popular director Harold Ramis, who also wrote Dangerfield's other films Caddyshack and Back to School, wrote the script though he didn't put his name on it, and Dangerfield got credit for the screenplay instead. Though after watching the movie, I'm not sure I'd want to put my name on it either. Ramis then left the production and sued over not getting compensation for the script. Dangerfield also had disagreements with Warner Brothers a few years earlier, as the studio sued him for dropping out of Caddyshack 2 at the last minute. Some believe this could have influenced the studio's decision to quietly release Rover Dangerfield. Guess when it comes to this movie, the farmer wasn't the only one who wanted to terminate Dangerfield. Though it would be nice to see an R-rated cut of the movie one day, because there's not really anything funny about Rodney Dangerfield as a dog if Rodney was muzzled from doing his own material. Cats. You may remember the disaster that was Cats, the movie of the musical that was released in December 2019. Cats was very obviously rushed to meet this release date, though I'm not sure why, as nobody was running to theaters to see it, with the cats looking more like they belonged in a horror movie than a family-friendly musical. Unfortunately, Cats was a huge flop, losing the studio more than $70 million. The film was reportedly finished at the 11th hour, right before it was sent to theaters, and it showed, as there were many mistakes in the CGI that made it into the film. In fact, there were so many mistakes, Universal had to patch them out and send a new version of the film to theaters 1 week after the original cut was released. And apparently, there's yet another version of Cats out there somewhere that was never released, which would have been even more disastrous than the first version, as the cats had visible assholes. According to crew members who worked on the film, Cats was a nightmare to work on, and not just because the sets in Cats looked like something out of a fever dream. The film's director, Tom Hooper, had never directed an animated film before, and allegedly had no idea what to do with cats, with members of the visual effects teams reportedly saying they had a hard time figuring out what the hell he wanted them to do. And to make things worse, they only had a few months to finish the entire film after taking 6 months to just finish the trailer, with some of the VFX artists reportedly staying in the studios for days at a time and sleeping under their desks to finish it. In the middle of the insane crunch, when the movie was halfway finished, crew members noticed for the first time that the cats had visible assholes. Apparently, the assholes were an accident, as an anonymous crew member claimed they were the result of the way the skin and fur sim were groomed, or just folded in a way that really looked like very furry lady genitals and buttholes. Yeah, I didn't need to hear that. The studio reportedly hired a new crew member 1 month before Cats released for the sole purpose of patching out all those assholes. Seeing as the 2 versions of Cats that made it to theaters were already a disaster, I think I speak for everyone when I say, let's hope the asshole cut is never released, because I don't think anyone wants to see James Corden's asshole. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, and if you know of any other kids movies that are originally a lot darker, submit through oddheader.com, come join the Discord, or even send me a shout through Twitter or Reddit. Shout out to Aaron Johnston, Angel the Fox, Ash Photography, Bitwith27, Black Evie50, Chad Biscuits, Eddie Talkspin the Bleach Primid, Flex, Jailbreak, Isaac Murillo, Kieran Bolton, The Meatly, Phoenix157, Rackman22, Riley S, Robert Eisenman, Select, Subrock, and Terrence Stock for their Patreon support. Stay tuned.